Have you ever heard the concept of the poor man's burden? Well, basically, it's the phenomenon that means in the long run, people who are forced to buy low quality stuff will actually spend a lot more in the long run than someone with the upfront budget to buy something well made. So for example, a low income family who has to buy $50 Walmart boots will have to replace them after a season, while the rich person who can buy $300 leather boots will be able to keep them for like 10 plus years and actually spend a lot less money over time. And whether that's fair or not, the same thing applies to most filmmaking gear too. Maybe you spend $500 on a new tripod only to have the leg locks fail 18 months later, or the bargain monitor you picked up on Black Friday fries a circuit in a light drizzle, or maybe that off-brand backpack blows all the zippers the third time you use it. And when that happens, you usually wish you'd just gotten the good stuff to start with. And that's what this video is all about. Premium filmmaking gear that you can trust to last for years, if not decades. But that quality comes at a price, because if you're the kind of filmmaker who needs their tools to perform at a very high level, you're gonna have to pay for it. So right off the bat, I'm sure this video is going to make some people mad because expensive gear tends to be polarizing like that. And it makes sense. We're all at different levels of our careers, everyone has different economic circumstances, and I totally get that for a lot of filmmakers out there, spending thousands of dollars on the perfect piece of gear is going to be way outside the realm of possibility. But at the same time, you have no idea when your career could take off, and you're just one lucky break away from leveling up. So thinking ahead isn't a bad idea, even if it's not realistic today. I started off my video career with a Nikon DSLR and a GorillaPod, and back then I never thought I'd be shopping around for cameras that cost more than a car. And if you stick around and actually put in the effort to grow your business over time, I think you'll find that your situation will change faster than you think. Also, standard disclaimer, no money changed hands for this video. I do have past relationships with a few of these brands, but I didn't get sent anything to make this video. Everything I'm featuring here was already part of my kit before I even had the idea for this. This video does have a sponsor, Audiio, but I'm not shouting out any company that I haven't personally bought things from with my own money. If you're still mad, that's what the comment section is for, so rage away. Okay, so first on this list is something that every single camera out there needs to function, and I'm talking about batteries. Over the years, I've tried to save money on more third-party batteries than I'd like to admit, and every time they let me down, I'm somehow surprised. Like, is anyone else out there still somehow outraged when that $14 charger starts smoking the first time you plug it in? Well, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 4 or 5 times, then it's time to make some changes. And of all the names out there, one company is more synonymous with quality batteries than all the others, and that's Anton Bauer. Anton Bauer is so common that on some big sets, people might not even ask you for a battery or even a brick, they'll just call them Anton Bauers, kind of like the Kleenex of camera batteries. But they're also more expensive than almost anything else out there, so even after I'd gotten established enough in my own career to afford upgrading to a more professional V-mount system, I still went with the cheaper brand before these because it just didn't seem worth it. And what do you know, 3 years later, 3 out of my 7 IDX batteries were no longer accepting a charge and had to be sent back to the factory for a reset. And I'm definitely not shaming IDX because they're just fine for a lot of things, and you'll see them all over the place, even on high-end shoots. But they're also 30% cheaper, and at that lower price point, you do have to make some sacrifices. I don't want to get into all the technical stuff about how batteries work, mostly because I barely understand it myself, but cheaper batteries just run hotter, they malfunction more, and like I said, they have a shorter lifespan. Basically, it all comes down to the quality of the cells, and better cells cost more. It's been 2 years since I switched over entirely to Anton Bauer, and I haven't had a problem since. They're still holding their charge like the day I got them, and looking back, I probably legitimately would have saved somewhere in the ballpark of about $4,000 if I just bought these from day one. Now that's totally ignoring the fact that on day one of my career, there is no way I could have afforded $400 batteries, so there's the poor man's burden in action. Save $200 up front, but spend $500 more down the road. Still though, it's worth keeping in mind that the sooner you can move into a system like this, the more you'll eventually save, and the sooner you can stop thinking about batteries in general. And as always though, that means without buying on credit, because that's almost never a good financial move. Next up, I want to talk about monitors, specifically on-camera monitors. In the age of the 4K standard deliverable, for most projects anyways, having a monitor you can actually trust and use to focus reliably is so important. If you shoot documentaries like I do, you also need something that's tough enough to take the abuse of the real world and not die as soon as it's misty outside. And for my money, no one makes more reliable and long-lasting monitors than Small HD. I got my first monitor, a Small HD 502 Ultra Bright, about 7 years ago, and it just kept on working while also giving me super accurate focusing tools. And when it did have an issue last year from a buzzing circuit, I was actually able to send it in for repairs. I mean, good luck getting technical service on a budget monitor from Amazon. I've since passed it on to my camera assistant, who's now got it on his FX6 rig, and I switched over to this Cine Ultra 5 or Cine 5 Ultra. But the ability or inability to fix our gear is another way that the poor man's burden hurts people, meaning that when you have no option but to use the lowest quality stuff, there's often nothing you can do when it breaks. That means more junk in the landfill and you're forced to buy again. Compare that to me getting 6.5 years out of my old monitor and then paying $100 to repair it, which is still cheaper than buying one from Amazon, and I get to use the better monitor, so it just works out in my favor. Yes, small HD monitors have all the bells and whistles like LUT support and false color and all that, but so do most of the other cheaper ones, even if they don't work nearly as well. But I don't actually care that much about overlays though, because the keys to a great monitor for me is one that's lightweight, has amazing focus peaking, it's bright enough to see in direct sunlight, and most importantly of all, it doesn't break. And for me, Small HD ticks all those boxes. I've tried 2 other brands of monitors in the past and hated them both so much I got rid of them within a month. If you work out the price per use ratio, the more expensive Small HDs end up being a far better value. No, they're not cheap and they're out of reach for a lot of people, I know, but if you're getting to the point where you want something that's really going to last and make your shooting life easier every single day, you can't go wrong with Small HD. Moving on, like I've said so many times on this channel, in docs, sound is almost as important as your video for telling great stories. And when it comes to well-built, high-quality audio gear, I keep coming back to the same company, Sennheiser. I've never gotten anything from Sennheiser. I bought everything I have with my own money, and I use Sennheiser mics for literally every part of my audio workflow, from the on-camera mics to the wireless lavs. I'm even recording this video into a Sennheiser 416 right now. For me, Sennheiser is the perfect balance of quality and reliability, and from their smaller mics all the way up to the $1,000 premium shotguns, they just sound good and keep on working. I've used mine in the snow, in the rain, in the jungle, out in the desert, and in pretty much any other weather condition you can think of, and they've never stumbled even once. There are even better mics out there, like the $2,000 Sheps mic or Shops, but for me as a DP and not a professional sound recordist, it's a bit too incremental of an improvement to be worth it. Lately, one of the questions I get asked the most is, what do I think of DJI lav mics, or whatever the competitor is from Rode or whoever? And I always have to say I have no idea because I've never used them. And the reason I've never used them is that I bought my Sennheiser G3 lavs in 2014, I think, and I've never needed to use anything else since. I've had them for so long that they don't even make the G3s anymore, but that's okay because I can't see them needing to be replaced anytime in this decade even. I supplement the setup with some technical trackies for getting mics onto more than one character at a time, but for the most part, it's been an all Sennheiser show over here since day one, and it's never let me down. So yeah, Sennheiser is not the cheapest out there, but they're also far from the most expensive either. Just take a look at the Electrosonics page for a minute. But for me, the long lifespan and great sound quality of their stuff means I'm just not in the market for anything else. And believe me, I've had opportunities because I get, no joke, like 10 emails a week from companies making low budget audio gear. And I've turned down 100% of them because I just don't want to review anything that I don't plan to use myself. And well, the stuff I own has lasted so long, I don't need anything else in my kit. So if you really want to buck the poor man's burden, investing in professional audio is probably the best bang for your buck out there, because unlike most camera gear, it doesn't go out of date. And speaking of audio, this is the perfect time to talk about the sponsor of today's video, Audiio. Man, that is gotta be in my top 5 slickest transitions yet. I nailed that one if I do say so myself. Anyways, Audiio has been a long-term supporter of this channel, and it's the main source of music for these videos and a bunch of my personal work too. You all know what these services do. You pay a monthly subscription and you get access to royalty-free music. Nothing new. So why would you go with Audiio? A bunch of reasons really, but to start, it's about curation. I personally don't want to be overwhelmed by 100,000 tracks. I just want a tightly screened list of only high-quality stuff so that I can find a song and get back to editing as fast as possible. Audiio already has more than enough music and sound effects for my needs, and so less quantity for higher quality is a trade-off that I'll make any day of the week. But even more than that, it's an incredible value proposition. Audiio is hands down the best deal out there, and if you use the code Luke70 on checkout, you get a full year of unlimited access for just $59. That's about a quarter of what these services normally cost, and it includes access to the entire library plus a ton of AI tools that make finding the right song as fast as possible so you can get back to work. The people who work there are great. They really believe in supporting filmmakers, and for me, this is a no-brainer investment if you need good music at an amazing price. Okay, let's get back to the gear. Now let's move into the rig building world here for a bit, because how you set up your camera is such a personal thing and it completely changes the way you shoot. Like, do you want a monitor on top of the camera for shooting at chest level, or do you want something that comes out a bit further for shooting off the shoulder? Do you need a battery plate to run V-mount batteries on your Sony camera, or maybe you're looking for a director's monitor cage? All that stuff sort of falls loosely under the same accessory/rigging category, and there are a few companies who specialize in this kind of thing. The most popular in the YouTube space is probably SmallRig, and for the most part I like what they make and think they're a really great budget option, but they're not my top pick for this video. I do use SmallRig 15mm rods and NATO rails and lots of other stuff, and for generic parts SmallRig is great value. But for the more complex bits, like the stuff with moving parts or that need to support heavy accessories, you're just not going to see that much SmallRig stuff on professional sets. And I'm not here to put down SmallRig, just for the record. They've done a lot to open up options for filmmakers on a budget, but outside simple things like cages and metal bits, they're just not the most ruggedly built. And for me, in this category, there are actually two companies that stand out over the rest. The first is Wooden Camera, which has been around for a while now, making burly, over-engineered and eye-wateringly expensive solutions that just work really well. Legitimately, one of the hardest things to find when I was building out my FX9 rig was a monitor arm that I could use to attach a small HD out in front and then could swivel without breaking. I mean, it sounds simple enough, but I promise you there are not that many good options out there, and I get asked about this, the universal monitor arm, more than any other single piece of gear that pops up on this channel. I've tried dozens of ways over the years, and this is hands down the best. And that's just one product. The same has been true for pretty much every wooden camera thing I've invested in. It just does what it says it's going to do. I've got one of their cages for my monitor. I've got a whole bag somewhere of these ball and socket ultra arm things, and this top handle has been on my rig since 2019. For the record, I bought all of it with my own money. I've never gotten anything from Wooden Camera, and I've never even spoken to anyone who works there. So it's just really what I found works the best. The trade-off is that the prices are wildly expensive sometimes, like many multiples higher than the SmallRig equivalents, but sadly that's the way it goes with a lot of this stuff. You pay those prices if you're a working professional and need something that's going to last 10 years, not if you're shooting your first short and need a top handle for that. Now, just in case you thought $400 for a monitor arm was expensive, if you've ever wanted to take this even a step further, you definitely could, and that's how I see this next brand. If Wooden Camera were bought by Ari, that's sort of how I see Bright Tangerine stuff. It's all made in a single factory in England, from what I can tell anyways, and it's maybe more common in the narrative and commercial worlds than in the run and gun community, but their stuff is insane when it comes to precision machining and ridiculous build quality. I personally own this follow focus unit, and I have to say it's one of the most satisfyingly well-built objects I own just in general. It's pure metal and the gears are perfect and it feels amazing in the hand. I absolutely love it. I see their stuff most often on high-end camera rigs, and high-end is the keyword here because at $1,700 this follow focus is 25 times more expensive than a SmallRig F40. So the logical question is, how can that possibly be worth it? Well, the very YouTubey answer here is that it depends. For me, yeah, it is. I don't use this all the time, but if I'm doing a job that requires a follow focus, it's usually something quite high profile, and so I need something that's going to work, no questions asked. If this was 15 years ago and I was using it on a small mirrorless setup to shoot a personal film, then no way in hell. It's big, it's heavy, it costs a fortune, but man, is this thing great, and everything else I've tried from Bright Tangerine has been the same. So yeah, definitely not for everyone, but definitely worth a shout out on this list because sometimes it's better to have pipe dreams than no dreams. Alright, just a couple more to get through here, and if you've been watching this channel for any length of time, odds are you might know what's coming. When it comes to the kind of filmmaking I do, which involves a lot of travel and remote environments, having tough gear is great, but it doesn't count for much if you can't physically get that gear to the location. And while the narrative world might be able to park a fleet of 10-ton trucks on their sets, I'm usually limited to what I can carry on my back. So that means backpacks. And for the last 10 years, I've had a love affair with just one company, and that's f-stop. I am technically an f-stop ambassador, but I was also a paying customer long before that happened, so my opinion here is genuine. Again, hate comment below if you don't like that. There are lots of competitors in this adventure backpack space, but for me, f-stop hits on the perfect balance of quality, functionality, nice design, and solid corporate ethics. I'm just gonna put put this down. Obviously, they do the main job of hauling gear around, but that's only part of the equation for me. The packs, especially the newer ones made of duradiamond fabric, are pretty much indestructible, and they're so water resistant that I've just straight up stopped packing the rain cover. Also, call me vain, but I don't want to look like a dork out there, and I love that these bags don't make you look like some sort of cyber ninja background extra from a Matrix movie. They just look good, especially the dark green or black versions, but you might not care about that stuff as much as I do. Even if you don't though, just know that they're bomb-proof and just as comfortable as high-end hiking packs to move with, so even though $400 or $500 is a lot to pay for a camera bag, it's actually pretty competitive for a backcountry bag that also holds 6 V-mounts, 5 lenses, and a drone. They genuinely seem to care about being a force for good in the world as well, and all their stuff ships in biodegradable plastic without them really ever bragging about it online, which I respect. They even make camera wraps out of sea algae, and for me, considering how outrageously wasteful the film industry can be, I do really appreciate that stuff. I've also heard good things about Shimoda, so f-stop isn't the only player in town, but they're the only bags I use, and I have no plans to change that anytime soon. Okay, let's close it out with tripods, and I'm going to keep this one short because any long-term viewer of this channel probably already knows what I'm going to say, but of all the tripods I've ever used, nothing comes close to the Sachtler Flowtech in terms of just ease of use, toughness, and long-term value. No one really likes spending money on tripods, but for most people, the Flowtech plus a decent head is a buy once and never think about again scenario. If you've never heard of these, you'll be able to find a million YouTube videos about them, including one on this channel from, I don't know, a couple years ago, but basically it's just an all carbon fiber tripod that unlocks and releases with just one latch mechanism. This combo of burly materials and the simple releases means it's incredibly fast to deploy, and it has a very high strength to weight ratio. Like, this thing weighs nothing. You can fully submerge it in the water, in the snow, in the sand, wherever, and it's gonna be fine. If you do get sand or salt on it, just spray it down with a garden hose and get back to work. This is also the one time in this video I'm not singling out a brand, but just an individual product. And it's not because I don't like the rest of Sachtler's stuff, because I do, and I'm actually using a Sachtler Ace tripod right now to film on. It's just that the Flowtech has been so impactful on my quality of life and shooting style that I need to sing its praises as a standalone thing. Now, on huge sets with like giant IMAX cameras or an ARRI that's built up with every accessory known to man, you need something beefier than this that probably costs 4 or 5 times as much as a Flowtech, so I'm not trying to claim that it's made for every type of film. But for run and gun shooters who need something strong and light that's gonna last across multiple camera bodies, this is the guy. So there we go, 7 premium brands that I trust the most. This isn't about me only buying the best of the best all the time, because there's also a time and place for going cheap sometimes. Instead, it's about knowing where quality matters the most to me, and that if I do need something especially reliable, money invested in these brands is most likely a good call. It hurts in the short term, and if you're just getting into the business or experimenting with video as a hobby, then this stuff probably isn't right for you. But if you're thinking about your career in years and decades instead of months, getting gear that's gonna last is the only way to escape the poor man's burden and come out on top. See ya.